All right, what's going on, everybody? Episode 7, Real Estate Coffee Talk. All right, so
It's been a beautiful week so far.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is.
Like weather-wise?
Oh, the weather was terrible.
No,
it was
wasn't.
good on
we
like
got
Wednesday and
yeah,
Thursday.
Wednesday, and then
It's snowing today.
Yeah. Well, other than that, all things considered,
Absolutely,
it's been a good week.
Absolutely.
I'm super excited today because we have a multi-can setup. Right,
Yeah,
Evan?
first time we're trying. We got a camera here, and then we got a camera over here
Evan
too.
was
So
super excited about this. When
I've
we
been
first
pushing
started,
for this for a
and
while.
I told him no because it's a lot of work, and then he said I'm going to do it. So here we are. We're doing.
So if the video looks like crap with multicam,
Just blame
you know
them.
who to thank for that.
Blame them. All right. Anyways, hold up before we get off topic. All right. The point of this podcast, right, is to educate professionals within our industry, okay, as well as consumers on all aspects of real estate.
Definitely.
Simply put,
Cool.
You know, we talked a lot about interest rates last week, which I think was a really good episode. Probably one of our better episodes so far.
lots of knowledge,
A lot
lots
of really good information that I don't think is really passed around in the general public. So it was good to get that episode out, especially in the rising rate environment that we're in right now. But today we're going to talk about first-time home buyers, right? Because first-time home buyers probably have a lot of questions about not only interest rates, but everything there is to know about buying a house.
Yeah, absolutely, because they've
and
never done it before.
Exactly. And I don't want this to be like the generic, like, save up $10,000, open up a credit card. All that stuff is basic and generic. I want to give real actionable tips to anybody who is seriously considering buying a home. That's what I want this podcast episode to be about. I know you guys too. So for anybody who's watching, if any of that criteria sounds like you, this will be a good episode for you.
And even if you're not a first-time home buyer, a lot of this is going to apply.
Yeah.
Just
in
across the board in all situations. So I think regardless of if it's geared towards first-time home buyers, I think anybody can pick up some knowledge and learn from this episode.
Bottom line is you only retain 50% of what you read or you watch or you write, right? So I'm pretty sure you're going to catch something off of this. So if you're going to take anything from it, you're going to take the invaluable tips that we're going to give you today.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
definitely. So the first thing I kind of want to start out with, and I think a lot of people forget this, and it seems like this doesn't really happen a lot, but I think it should, is that when a first-time home buyer decides they're going to get in the market or they're going to think about buying a house, the first thing they do is they either go and get pre-approved or they go to a realtor. The traditional way is they would go to a realtor first and then they would get pre-approved. Now it's starting to seem like it's the other way. But you know, we've talked about it on this podcast so many times that it's important for everybody to be on the same team, right? So I think that going to one person first is good, but you have to build your team, right? You have to make sure your team is all on because that's all it is. When you're buying a house, you're building a team, right? You're building a team with a realtor, a mortgage planner, financial advisor. If you have one, it's recommended. You're just building a team, right? So it's important to not just go and get pre-approved and know, okay, now I'm pre-approved. Now I'm going to go find a realtor and just go find some random realtor. You want to pick somebody who's going to work well together with you and with the whole other team around. So that way this process can go smooth. I think that's super important to build a team. That's probably the first place to start is what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, that's the reason why I work so well with you guys is, I mean, we are a team. Every time I've done a transaction with you guys, it's been nothing but smooth, and the clients have been nothing but satisfied.
Yeah.
So that's definitely an important thing, because I know on your guys' end, you guys preface communication all the time. You guys are very communicative. You're following up with the agents on every step of the way. There's been times where I've worked with lenders that aren't like that. You might go longer than you should have. Like, okay, it might be a couple days after you get the appraisal back, and then they're finally reaching out, or whatever it is, an important milestone. Like, you guys are right on it every single time. Okay, boom, it happened. Here you go. Here's a notification that it happened. Mm-hmm. There's been lenders in the past where there's been no communication whatsoever, and those are the transactions that aren't fun for anybody, the client or me as the agent.
Yeah. I mean, it's just so important whether you're putting in an offer for the agent, the client to notify the mortgage lender, whether you're just even going to look at a house and you want to know what the updated numbers are. Like, all that stuff's important, because if it's never easy when we just get a random contract to pop up in our email and we're like, oh my God, this so-and-so client from 6 months ago that stopped responding to us, now they're under contract, I guess. I don't even know who their agent is. Well, now I do, because I got an email from them. Those transactions are never the smooth ones, to be honest, right? You could probably
yeah, I mean, that's responsibility on our end as well. We can point fingers, we can blame it, but at the end of the day, like the mortgage planner, we're the backbone, right? We have to be better at our job than everybody else involved. And we understand that agents, you have a ton of things going on, right? So as long as we're stepping up to the plate and we're keeping a good track, not only on our personal analytics, but, our clients, just ensuring that we're paying attention to market trends, we're updating them on a weekly basis. And the agent, we have to update them as well, because you know what, at the end of the day, you guys are going crazy out there, and, it's our job to be better, because once again, we're all a team, and the team doesn't consist about pointing fingers. Yes, we have a delegated responsibility, but we also have a responsibility to the client to pick each other up in those times of,
No, definitely. I'm not saying, pointing fingers. All I'm saying is if you're a first-time home buyer, it's important that you've got to make sure everybody's on the same page.
100%.
If you're going into it, you've got to pick a team that's going to be on the same page.
Yeah.
Not to say like it's the realtor's fault for not staying in front, because you're right. It's everybody should be in front of each other. It's in reality. But if you want it to be easy as a first-time home buyer, it's important to have a team that's going to work well together.
I mean, you talk about communication too, and being that buyer, communicate. I'll give you an example really quick. Okay, I have a client. He placed 2 offers on houses this weekend. I didn't know about it. Mm-hmm. So I called him up. Okay, I knew he was looking at a house, and he was supposed to get back to me, and it was crazy times. But we had some volatile market changes recently, and it is my job as a professional to go back through all of my files, reestablish what the updated numbers are, because those expectations that you had before, they're gone. They're out the door, and they're not coming back. And that agent did not communicate with me that they put those offers in, and I actually have a feeling that I could have improved their chances of actually getting into that house, because we're reaching out to the agent. We're letting them know we don't give pre-approvals. We give fully executed underwritten files. We revalidate everything that we did. And think about it. If you're a listing agent, Evan, you know this, you can attest, you're seeing 15, 20, 30 offers come on the table. How do you really decipher, which ones are going to be the best immediately? And it's my job as well to make sure that our offer is going to stand out.
And it's funny you say that. So yesterday I actually there was a panel put on where some of the top producing agents and team leaders in the area kind of talked. And somebody brought up that point where, hey, when you have all these offers, they're like, sometimes it isn't always about the purchase price. It's about, okay, who's doing the communication? How is the lender? The agent, are they communicating well? Are they following up if it's over a multi-day span of accepting offers, viewing offers, things like that? I mean, that's a big thing. That was what was mentioned. Like, hey, like the follow-up. I know for a fact with some of mine and Sam's clients in the past, that's been an important factor, is the actual reaching out on on his part. Even if we haven't gotten the offer, they said, hey, like, we really, really appreciate that the loan officer gave us a call, went over everything with us, and they said like that made a major difference in the thing, in the actual experience of presenting the offer. But in those cases, the other purchase price was a little too good to pass up. So
it's cool.
But to that extent, though, I mean, that bridged the gap. That even if there was a $10,000 or $15,000 difference in the purchase prices, I mean, that bridged the gap. So that way now it's maybe a little closer, just because they see that extra dedication and work, and they're like, okay, well, I know it's going to go smooth if this is who's working on the other side.
If you're putting this effort up front, it's going to be.
Yeah.
Well, it's not only that, but what about future houses? Okay, you don't win that bid, but remember, you limited amount of agents in particular areas, right? Your agents are predominantly in specific areas, east side, west side, whatever it may be, but you never know when you're going to come across that. So just because you don't get that deal, I mean, us as mortgage planners, once again, we have to make that impression, because we're going to run across you.
Right.
Again, sooner or later, and I'm going to tell you this right now.
Whether it's on the buy side or you have a mutual client.
Either way, and the same thing goes when you have your top agents that just do a majority of the business. That's the same thing with mortgage planners, right? You'll have your one-offs here. You'll have your one-offs, Rocket, run-offs, Loan Deep, whatever it may be. But you have predominant names in the market, and people know who you are. But you have to voice who you are.
Right.
That's my whole thing.
Yeah, no, definitely. So where I kind of wanted to go from this is, okay, you're a first-time home buyer. You know nothing about the process. You know nothing about what do I need to do? Where do I start? I think that's a good place to start, building a team. Because once you have your team squared away, it's going to be a lot easier to start making a checklist of what you want in your house. It's a good way to obviously get your financing in order, right? And we could talk a little bit more in depth on that, but I think that's probably the first step. Would you guys agree? And in the whole process, if you're ready to buy a house for your first time, you got to put together a team.
For sure. I mean, how are you gonna? Okay, so Sam, how do you determine who's gonna be that right mortgage planner? Like, what are some of the things that they need to look out for when they're choosing their lender?
Yeah, I mean, what I always tell everybody who I talk to is you've got to pick somebody you trust, right? Whether it's on the real estate agent side, whether it's on the lender side. And I always tell them, if it's not me, that's okay, right? If you don't trust me, I'm going to do everything I can to earn your trust. But if you don't trust me, that's totally okay. What I would recommend you do is go with somebody you trust, right? So go with somebody who you feel is going to be there for you, who's going to educate you, and make this process easy for you.
Can you determine, like, I don't mean to stop you, touch base on education though, because I think that's one of the most overlooked aspects because we lack financial literacy in the mortgage and the real estate field.
Yeah, I mean, so we get people sent to us all the time for second opinions, right? And okay, so where are you at with this other lender? I don't know. They told me I was pre-approved for $200,000. Okay, that's great. Did you find anything? Do you know anything about that? Do you know what your rough payment is? Oh, I want my payment to be $600 a month. Okay, so you're pre-approved for $200,000. You want your payment to be $600 a month? No, that's never going to happen, right? It's pretty much impossible. That right there just demonstrates it. There's a lack of education, right? So you have to show the clients, because what a lot of people forget too, and I always tell this to first-time home buyers, is because people will look at houses, okay, it's $200,000 house, they'll plug the loan amount or whatever into Google mortgage calculator, and they'll go, okay, my payment's gonna be $800. They forget about his taxes, they forget about his insurance. The taxes can greatly change what your payment's gonna be based on the area, right? A $200,000 house in Parma and a $200,000 house in Cleveland Heights, the payment's gonna be a lot different.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget about that. And surprisingly enough, there's really no mortgage planners who, what I found is a lot of them don't go in depth on that stuff. They say your payment's probably going to be around here. You're pre-approved for $200,000. Here's a pre-approval letter.
Here's a fee worksheet.
Yeah, here's what you can expect to bring to close. I've had one before where it's they don't even know what they're required to bring to close. It's crazy, and listen. Everybody does everything differently. If that's what you want, because we've had clients too who are like, I don't want to know anything about it. I just tell me what I'm qualified for. Tell me what my payment's going to be once I find the house, and I want to know what I'm bringing to the table, and I want to click a button and get a mortgage. Perfect. If that's what you want, go find a lender who's going to do that, because that's not what we do, right? We understand that not everybody wants to know everything, but a lot of people appreciate the education.
Well, not only that, but it's for our sake as well. Like, I can't go to bed at night knowing that I allowed you to go into a financial position because you thought you were okay and you wanted to press a button. So it really starts with us really asking those in-depth questions about what your goals are, your short-term, your long-term, what your budget levels are. Do you have, college coming up? When do you want to retire? How does this house correlate with this? Because this is the largest financial and emotional decision that you're going to make, and everything stems around that, right? So if you can't give me those details, I'm sorry, I don't want to work with you. Easy.
We're just not a good match.
Yeah, and that's okay. Like, I don't take offense to it.
No.
There's some people that just want an interest rate, even though that's probably it's important, but it's not. And I'm sorry, I just can't be that person.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what it comes down to. Is just what do you want? What is gonna make you trust somebody? What is it? Is it somebody giving you a payment and a rate? Okay. It's not us. And so we'll do that, but that's not. Actually, no, we won't do that. I don't even think we would. Even if somebody called me up, and I know you've actually had it the other day where you had somebody call you, and they said, "Hey, Dustin, I really want a payment and a rate," and you're like, "No, we'll get to that, absolutely, but let's talk about what your goals are, right? How long do you want to be in this house? What do you want to make on this house when you're done with it, right? What else is going on in your life right now? Do you have any kids going to college?" And he was just like, "No, I don't care about any of that stuff. I want to know a rate and a payment." And Dustin was like, "Okay, that's fantastic. That's unfortunately not how my practice works. It's probably best we don't work together. It sounds like we're not a good fit. That's okay, right? That's perfectly fine."
That's the beauty of our industry is, although people most times are going to come to us, we have the ability to choose, like, hey, like, not only are you interviewing me, but I'm also interviewing you to see if this is a good fit for me as well.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's been times where I've had to walk away from a client because they're just almost window shopping, and they have, from what it seems, no intention of ever purchasing or doing anything of that relation, whether it's attitude, how they're treating me or other people that I work with. I mean, there's been times, like, that's the beauty of this industry. Like, if somebody comes to you and wants to work with you, you're not bound to them, just like they aren't bound to you.
Now, if they apply, I can't legally tell them no, but I don't have to tell you a rate and a payment over the phone by you giving me some criteria. And that's something that I refuse to do, because think about it. It could be based on what you're, the perfect example, if there's a difference between 5 to 15 years that you're going to be in that home, right? That might be the wrong mortgage for you, right? You might have, the lowest rate, but it might be the wrong mortgage program and vice versa, right? So those are things that we really need to establish. And I don't know why more people would not want to go into detail with that. Why would you not want to know every single aspect of the largest debt that you take on? I mean, it literally is going to control
every
your
option
life.
too.
Right. It's going to control your life on a monthly basis. Like, your whole world is going to revolve around that mortgage. Why wouldn't you want to spend more time? Because we're afraid.
Well, and
that's why.
And you talk about all the time, people, their main concern is rate. Well, okay, if you want to know what every option of your rate is, why wouldn't you want to know every other option for your different mortgage options are?
Yeah, and that's more so to their condition, because, if you type in mortgage rate, everybody, what's the first thing that comes up? Rocket Mortgage, right? Because they pay for it, right? So society wants to condition us, or marketing companies want to condition us that rate is the most important thing because that's what captivates attention, right? That's what we're told, rather than looking at the true cost of a mortgage over time. But yeah, but nail on the head, Sam. Yes, trust. And how do you establish trust? By transparency and education. In my eyes, that's how you establish trust.
But bottom line, if you're a first-time home buyer, you've got to go with somebody you trust. On the real estate side, or on the real estate agent side and the lender side, insurance, anybody who's a part of your team, you got to go with somebody you trust. That's all it is, right? How do you trust them? That's determined by you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the time, I mean, I'm sure it's the same way with you guys, but with me a lot, like, that trust, sometimes if it's a referral from a past client, that trust is kind of already there based off of the kind words of previous clients saying, hey, look, Evan or Dustin or Sam, they took real good care of me. They did everything that they could to make sure that I got into my house for the lowest price possible. They went to battle for me. They went to war for me and got it done. Mm-hmm. So at that point, there's already a little bit of trust built because they know, okay, well, we got Joe Blow over here. He's my friend, and he's given all these nice, kind words about how these guys did whatever they could for him. So why would they not give that same service to me? So, I mean, there's already a little bit of pre-notioned trust there, I think, coming from past clients.
Yeah, the good thing
definitely helps.
We're constantly looking to continually earn your trust, right? So we never get complacent. And that's why we stand where we stand. So 100% on the experience every single time, no matter how small or how large a loan is.
Definitely. So I think there was a lot of really good stuff on picking a team. That's probably the first step you would do. How do you pick somebody you trust? It's up to you, right? Let's talk a little bit more about the specifics. So I kind of want to start with the physical house and the areas and things like that. The fun stuff, we would say, not the
non-sexy stuff. Yeah,
mortgages are the boring stuff.
Mortgages are not sexy.
So, Evan, when you get a first-time home buyer and they don't really know, I would say probably like half the time they don't really know what they want. They just know they want to buy a house. Half the time maybe they do know what they want. I mean, what are some questions that you ask any like first-time home buyer? I guess any buyer in general who doesn't know what they want to try and get them to understand what they want, whether it's like a certain area. And obviously, that stuff's very general and very basic, but like, is there any specific questions you ask to try to get a good gauge that somebody might not think of if they haven't talked to an agent yet? Or
so I mean, usually the first thing that I'm doing is I'm checking to see, have they spoken to a lender? Because before I get into, okay, well, I need to make sure I know that, and okay, are you pre-approved, and if so, for how much? Because if I don't know that information, then they start telling me, hey, I want to be in Gates Mills, I want to be in Westlake, I want to be in Bay Village or Rocky River, but then come to find out they're pre-approved for $125,000. Well, it's like, okay, well, I can't serve you the best of my ability if those are areas that you more likely than not going to be able to find something for $125,000. So I think for me, it's important to set the tone of, okay, you know how much you're pre-approved for, and you tell me I want to be in these areas. Well, if those are unrealistic dreams or goals, like, hey, I want to be in this area for this price, I want to be prepared so that way I can say, hey, look, I understand that, like, you want to be there. Odds are that there really aren't too many listings that come up in those areas for that price.
Right.
But here are some neighborhoods in the area that are in that range, and there's always going to be listings in that. Out of these ones, which areas would you consider living in? Right. And then that kind of sets that expectation of, oh, like, I wouldn't have even thought of thing. Because people, I mean, I'm sure you see it all the time. People go on Zillow, Realtor.com. They see, like you said, they see their estimated mortgage payment at the purchase price, but when it shows up on the bottom of the screen, that's factoring in like a 20% down payment, but it also
And all the wrong
doesn't
information,
factor in any of, like you said, insurance, taxes.
Well, it does. It's like 8 or 9 times out of 10, the taxes are always wrong. I used to trust it, and then I got burned too many times by Zillow's taxes. So now I only go to the auditor's website. Total side note.
Wait,
yeah.
got a huge joke here though. All right.
What?
I think it's an April Fool's joke. Okay, it might be like somewhat of a dad joke too.
Okay.
Wait, I got it. Okay, how? Wait a minute. What site do you use to check the value of your home? Zestimate. No, I'm just playing. That
This
was
is where I put in a cricket sound effect.
Can you actually do that, please?
I thought it was funny. I thought it was funny. Okay, listen, I'm a dad. Okay, relax. Okay, I'm gonna bring a dad joke every single week now.
I'm counting on that. I'm gonna hold you to that. And if you don't, we're putting a counter and we're having a tally.
Hey,
We
I got a good one. It was from the basketball player. I saw it. He goes, "What do you call a cow that lays on the ground?" Ground beef.
That one made a little more sense than the last one. So
You get a reel on that one?
A little random. But okay.
I don't even remember where I was.
So you were saying, okay, you don't want, basically what I'm hearing is you don't want somebody to be financially or emotionally invested in something that they can't have.
Correct, yeah,
You don't want
so
to take them to go see houses that they can't buy, because it sucks for not only everybody for wasting time, but it sucks for them because they get their heart broken.
Yeah,
right?
and if people kind of had the idea, like, there's people I talk to all the time before they even talk to a lender. It's like, yeah, well, I want to stay under 200,000, and it's like, okay, like, have you talked to a lender? Do you know if you can even go up to 200,000?
Right.
And if that's the case, I mean, if they haven't talked to a lender and they just think, well, based on the mortgage calculator here, I can afford that. But in reality,
comfortable with the payment of.
yeah, I mean, but they're not taking into account that, okay, well, my income needs to be at a certain point, my credit needs to be at a certain point, how much money I have saved, like all those things play a role into that. It's not just like I can afford $1,200 a month because I'm already paying that in rent. Like that's like,
Right.
it's not as simple as
How about your
that.
living expenses? How about, do you have 6 months set aside? Do you have 1 to 2%
Well, and
of
that's-
the home purchase set aside for unforeseen
And that's what I'm saying, though.
repairs?
Without talking to the
Right.
mortgage professionals, a lot of people don't understand that just because it might be a $1,200 payment, there's a lot of things that go into actually being able to qualify for that $1,200 payment.
Yeah.
You're not factoring in, okay, the payment it's showing me, that's a 20% down payment. If I don't have 20%, it's going to be higher than what the mortgage payment, the estimated mortgage payment is showing me.
And you have PMI.
And then you have all this other stuff going on. So I think just making sure that people have their expectations financially set prior to starting actually going and looking at homes is super important. So that way you can kind of set their expectations of
For sure.
more
Okay.
realistic.
Yes, for sure.
So that's the first. That's
Yeah.
the first thing you'd
Yep.
probably go over. Okay, cool. Well, no, I think that was really good. We'll take a quick break, and then when we come back, I want to start with, okay, did you get pre-approved, right? And then after that, I probably want to learn, like, okay, how do I determine what areas are good? How do I determine how much space do I need? How do I determine what kind of house I want? Because honestly, I don't even know that myself. Like, I don't even know what the difference is. Only thing I do know is like Cape Cod, because of the new appraisal thing, and like, you know,
Cutting it off. 50%.
standard-
Yeah.
the standard, the standard like homes I know, but like
Yeah.
for the most part, I don't know any of the specific. Like I hear you say stuff all the time. I'm like, I don't even know what kind of house that is, but
Sometimes it can be a little.
It's like foreign. It's like us trying to explain an appraisal gap strategy to you, you know?
yeah,
It's like you
definitely.
trying to. Yeah. That is the one. I was gonna say something else, but
Yeah, no, for
well,
sure. Okay.
PG-13.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Yeah. All right. So we'll take a quick break, and then we'll come back and talk a little bit more about that stuff.
Awesome.
Yo, we're back. Here we go. Let's talk about.
Perfect. Yeah. So when we left off,
Let's talk about.
And then he
I have
cuts
a
me off.
tendency to do. I have a tendency to do that recently. How you're?
There you
Sorry. Go ahead.
It's actually payback, because I've done it to you quite often.
Hey, I don't
in
mean to
the
cut you
past.
off.
As you're cutting me off.
All right. Forget about that. Let's go. You go.
Wait. So do you want me to?
No, I think we're gonna go back to you.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
All right, so you get a first-time home buyer or just any buyer in general.
Yeah.
Right? First question you say, are you pre-approved?
Yep.
Got that established. Okay, so the pre-approved, the areas they're looking at is realistic for what their pre-approval amount is and what their budget is. I don't know what kind of house I want. I mean, guess most people have an established idea of like I want a garage, or I don't want a garage, or I need
Yeah.
an office space, or whatever it may be. Is there any questions you would ask? Like if somebody's just like, Evan, I don't know what I want. Like I have no kids, I'm by myself, or I have a girlfriend, or whatever, girlfriend, boyfriend. Is there any like trigger questions or anything you would ask to try and get a good understanding as to what they're looking for?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah. So like we'll use Dawson for example. So Dawson's he's one of our buddies, but he's also one of our.
Why are you laughing? Why are you smiling right now?
Because
I
if
just heard
anybody
Dawson, he
if
was
anybody
like-
knows Dawson, then you know
just
he's
everybody
like,
look at me. Say Dawson. This is what Sam did.
Dawson. Well, I'll put it this way: if anybody listening knows who Dawson is, then they
Well,
know
and
why he's laughing.
He's living proof for somebody being 20 years old buying a house.
Yep, absolutely. But like with him, those some of the questions that we asked were, I mean, for example, you said he's a guy, 20 years old, no kids, no dog, lives by himself. What are you looking for? And honestly, with him, he's like, just give me 4 walls and a roof. But at the same time, he's like, I want at least a 1-car garage.
Yeah.
So, okay, that we know he wants a garage. Okay, does it need to be attached, or do you care if it's attached or detached? I don't care as long as there's somewhere to put my car. Cool. Have that. Obviously, you need at least, he said, 2 bedrooms or more. And then I recommend anytime somebody says, hey, I want 2 bedrooms, I usually say, hey, like you might as well consider getting 3 bedrooms just because when
It's more common, right?
well, and when it comes time to sell it, maybe 5-10 years from now, it's a lot
little bit
easier
more
to
value.
sell. Yeah.
3-bedroom.
Resale value is going to be a lot higher and a lot easier to sell on a 3-bedroom than it is a 2-bedroom. And another big thing I say is, are you open to like condos or cluster homes? Are you looking for something that's strictly a standalone single family?
Right.
Because if somebody has like a lower budget, like you might be able to get a $125,000 house in Parma Heights, but then you might be able to get a $125,000 condo in Westlake, Rock
Right.
River Bay Village. So that's why I asked that, because I'm like, if you have this much to spend, I'm like, yes, you might be able to get a house for this price, but you also might be able to get a really nice condo.
Right. I'm glad you brought that up too, and definitely don't let me forget later. I want to talk about condos on the lending side, because I feel like a lot of first-time homebuyers come, or just anybody that they're like, oh, I want a condo, but they don't realize there's a lot more that goes into a condo. It's not just like any other house. So
Yep.
I definitely want to talk about that later. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yep.
Okay, cool. So would you say that, typically, I feel like if I didn't know what I wanted to do and I went to my first showing after that and I saw something like in person, I feel like I would have a better idea as to what I want. So
Yeah.
for anybody who like feels that they just don't know where to start, do you think once they get going and they decide they're ready to buy and they put their team together and they go and see a house for the first time, do you think they'll have a better understanding as to what they want?
100%. So I tell people all the time, I say, look, give me a rough idea of what you're looking for. If you know you want at least 2 or more bedrooms, if you know you want a basement, if you know you want a garage, let's start with that.
Right.
Okay. And then as we start to go see more homes, you're going to be able to say, okay, well,
I like this. I
maybe,
don't like this.
maybe I really, really don't like split level homes. Okay. Well, you can take that off of your criteria.
Right.
Or you can say, maybe I only want to get a ranch or a colonial.
Right.
Then you can start to narrow that down as you go on more showings. And then you can say, okay, well, I saw how big that acre lot was. I don't really want to spend all the time mowing an acre lawn, so can we keep it under 1/4 of an acre?
Right.
So as you go on more showings, I tell people all the time, I'm like, look, I can go back and I can change this at any point. You tell me what you want changed, and I can change it like that.
Like the search criteria? Is that
Yeah,
what
the
you're
search criteria in the MLS. I can change it like in the snap of a finger. So I tell them, I'm like, look, the beauty of this, I'm like, even if you go there and you hate the house,
Mhm.
you're picking up things that you either
Didn't
really
think about,
liked
yeah.
or you really disliked. And then you know when you're clicking through photos or when you're trying to set something up, you can say, oh, well, that house I really didn't like, that also had this style kitchen or this type of yard size or layout. And you can kind of understand, like, okay, like as you start to go through more homes, you can start crossing more things off of your list of,
Yeah.
okay, stay away from this, and this.
Right.
Or vice versa, you can say, I really want something that has a master bathroom, like attached with a walk-in closet in there as well. Or you can say, I really want something that has a second floor laundry or first floor mudroom as you come in the garage. Like there's always, your criteria is always going to be changing.
So you're saying, it's probably usually when you go and see a house or two, now you start to think about things you never even would have thought of before you started. Okay, good.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a legitimate concern for a lot of people. They're like, I want to buy. I know it's probably financially smart to buy, but I just don't know what I want, so I'm not going to. And I'm nervous that I can't find something that I want because I don't know what I want. You know what I mean? Okay, cool. I think that was really, really good. We answered a lot of questions there. We got about 20 minutes left. I want to talk about the financing as a first-time home buyer. I want to dip into condos because we have some people who want condos because it's a good place to start. I want to talk about, if you're looking to buy, you're going to finance, because we could talk for 3 hours about being a first-time home buyer, what you need to finance, and we really could. But just the bare basics on, okay, obviously you need a credit score, right? But like, do you need to have 10 credit cards? Do you need to have student loans? Do you need to not have student loans? I would say probably the answer to that is it's case by case.
Yeah, I think
right?
yeah.
Because you can have somebody with $500,000 in student loans, and they're more than qualified to buy because of income-based repayment plans. So it's like, people don't realize that stuff. So I think that, and I kind of just want to transition into this, is that when it comes to financing and you're worried, okay, what do I need? Do I need $10,000? Do I need 3.5% down? What I think you need to do is, once you decide, hey, I'm going to buy and this is my timeline, you need to build your team and talk to a lender, right? Because, there's people who we talk to and we evaluate credit and we go, okay, this looks good. And you just need to save up some money, and they do. And then they go and buy a house. So just because you don't have $15,000 or 20% down saved up and you don't have a ton of credit established right now, it doesn't mean you can't talk to somebody. Right?
Well, and I know you guys have had situations before where it was as simple as paying off a credit card bill of $300 or something like that. Like, that's the thing. You never really know if you can truly
buy until you try.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or how much you're going to be able to buy. I think a lot of people, I think they anticipate being able to afford a lot less than they actually are capable of. Mm-hmm. And I think that once they actually speak with a lender, they're like, holy cow, like, I thought I could only buy X, but in reality, like, with my wife's income, we can qualify for double what I was thinking we could
exactly.
go for.
And another thing too I want to bring up is a lot of people get nervous because they don't want to apply because they think that, okay, my situation could be better in a couple months, or I'm going to have a little bit more money saved up. But the pre-approval, and this is probably uncompliant to say this, but it's almost like a mini application. It's not a real application. Once you get a house under contract, now that is a real loan application, right?
Yeah, well,
Would you say so?
Yeah,
so what I'm saying, where I'm getting at is if things are off or something needs adjusted, it doesn't mean you're just going to straight up get denied on your pre-approval and you're done. You can't get any financing ever again.
Well, it's a snapshot. It's basically that pre-approval. Well, it's PYT with us because we actually underwrite our files, so we do everything backwards. Right. But it's how it should be. That gives you an opportunity to proactively look, and adjust things as you go on. Like, especially if somebody tells me, I'm not going to start looking for 3 or 4 months. I'm not ready to, to pull the trigger. So you're telling me right now that you want to wait until last minute and then push yourself into a rush decision rather than getting a snapshot of what to look forward to, especially the fact that the market constantly is changing right now, more so ever because the Fed's stepping in with the short-term rate hikes, and we have 6 more meetings. So knowing what you can afford now, and then we can really capitalize on being proactive if we have a volatile market shift to reestablish what those expectations should be. So it's all about being, it's all about setting up expectations. Personally, in my eyes, you should be looking at this 3 months, 4 months before you even, maybe even 6 months to a year, because how are you supposed to set up for that? How are you supposed to prepare? What happens if you're $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 off from cash to close or your down payment goal? You would have never known, and because you weren't proactive.
Yeah.
Right. Well,
wait
that's
till
another.
You find the house that you love and you fall in love with it, and then you can't buy it.
Well, and that's another thing. If you don't check and see, right, you're never going to know what you need to do to better yourself. So whether all it is paying off a credit card or relieving some sort of debt until you talk to a mortgage professional, you're not going to know. Even if it's like just simple things like, hey, like, you need to start putting more stuff on credit to get your scores up a little bit. Those are things that, like, until, like, let's say they're on a lease, right? They have 2 months left. Okay, well, we know we're already way too close to the end line of the lease.
100%.
That if there are
You're
other things,
homeless.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. If there are other things that are going to potentially limit them from purchasing, whether it's credit score, how much money they save, they basically screwed themselves by not giving themselves enough time.
Well, another thing too is you don't have a mortgage payment for the first 2 months. So that's another thing, is being proactive and setting up for that smooth transition, so you don't have overlap payments and you're not up against the wall.
Right.
That's what a lot of people fail to really realize. And on top of that too, think of it as like a doctor, a checkup, a 6-month checkup, a yearly checkup, right? When you go to the doctor, and I'll use this analogy until the day that I die, he gives you a diagnosis based on what your symptoms are, right? So here's what my goals are. Here's the diagnosis that I'm going to give to you. And then we're going to do a checkup every single month, right? We're going to constantly stay in front of you, because you're not going to retain all that information as well. So throughout the process of just leading up to that, it could be months out. By the time that you actually enter that search stage for that home, oh, you're 100% ahead of 95% of other people. And think about when you have to go into a competitive situation. A lot of people, even agents too, I see, like, nobody really knows what to do. I mean, you do, but there are circumstances where it's like, do I go above asking? I'm in a competitive situation. What's this going to mean to my client's payments? I mean, those are things that you're probably thinking about. And if we're proactive up front, you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And before we start, if anybody's distracted by me on the video version scratching my eyes, Mr. Passalacqua over here does have a cat, and I am deathly allergic, and I promise I am not crying. It is my allergies.
Yes, he is. He's crying. He's
sad.
crying. He's sad because
I've
he can't
gotten
help
it.
more families. That's what he said about.
That's what it is. Yeah.
And I've just been
See, another dad joke.
I've been getting tormented with these April Fool's Day jokes all day, that it's just making me sad, man.
Sorry, man. Sorry to hear that.
No, but I
Start early.
yeah.
Start early, right? There's really no disadvantage to starting early.
No, there isn't. I mean,
at all. Unless you start way too early and then you go and buy a Mercedes.
Well, that's yeah.
Now your situation
Well, at least you
changes.
know not to buy a Mercedes if you start super early, because we're going to tell you
That is
don't buy a
true.
Mercedes.
Right.
That is
We're
true.
going to tell you.
I mean, think about like investments. Like when you're investing, do you start investing when when you're
Just on a
50?
whim?
No. You start investing. You should be in your 20s, right? Setting up
some people
early.
do, and guess what? They end up in a pinch. Right.
I mean, listen, I started in my 30s, and that was probably the worst mistake of my life. So now I'm paying for it right now just to catch up to that 20-year-old. So I got to make up for it with monthly monthly
Investments, payments.
huh? Monthly
Investments and
There we go. I have to put more money up front.
Okay.
That's what I have to do right now.
Perfect.
Yeah, there we go.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Perfect.
Brain
Those are the
fart.
words. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Very
know.
good.
I was like, I don't know where you're going with this. So you were like, what's the word? And I'm
Just
sitting
pay
here
attention to your eyes, okay? Just leave me alone.
Like, dude, that's all I'm paying attention to right now.
So, okay, it's pretty apparent. Start financing early.
Yeah, just get it done with it. Just get it done with it.
Early.
The sooner you talk to a realtor, the sooner you talk to a lender, the more you're going to know, the better situation you're going to be, and the more educated you're going to be.
Yeah, definitely. So, I want to talk about our market right now as a first-time home buyer, but I also want to talk about the condo thing really quick.
Yep.
So, condos in the financing world work differently than a single-family house. Depending on your lender, sometimes you have something called you always have something called a condo review. And sometimes, depending on if it's you know this better than I do, but sometimes depending if it's a limited review or a full condo review, will determine how much you're allowed to put down. So you can put 3% down on any single-family residence, right? If you're a first-time home buyer. Not
No.
always.
You can do it non-first time. So I want to point this out really quick, because I saw another loan officer on another podcast telling you that you have to be within a certain income limit, right?
That's for home
And
rental. Yeah.
Right. Okay, so no. You could be a multiple. Well, yeah. Let me just retract my statement. We'll go into that later. All right. My
Well,
bad.
yeah, the only reason I'm saying this is
Yeah.
a first-time home buyer.
But the general rule of thumb, 3%. My bad.
You can put 3% down, not as a first-time home buyer, with certain stipulations.
Yeah.
That's where you're getting at.
Correct.
But
Yeah.
if you're a first-time home buyer, you can always put 3% down, regardless.
Correct,
You
yes.
can make $100,000.
Yep.
Or $500,000. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
You can put okay, cool. Condos don't always work like that, though, and a lot of first-time home buyers get attracted to condos because they're small. It's sometimes perfect. A lot of first-time home buyers don't have huge families. They just
Well, and a
want-
lot
No
of
maintenance.
no maintenance. A lot of lot of HOAs are going to take care of all
Yeah,
of your exterior
exactly.
stuff.
But you're gonna pay for it.
You
well,
are.
that's
You are.
Definitely.
We'll get into that later.
So what I was saying, when it comes to underwriting for the condos, you either have a full review or a limited review, and sometimes that'll change how much you're allowed to put down. You're not always going to be allowed to put 3% down. You're not always going to be able to put even 5% down. Sometimes you're going to be required to put 10% down, right? Depending on what kind of review. It's rare, but you need to understand that just because you're looking at a condo, it's not looked at the same as a single family residence to the lender. Could it be? Could you put 30% down on a condo? Yeah, it's possible. Totally. Just depends, right? So all that stuff's important. Another thing I want to touch on, a lot of people forget about, is yes, condos are cheaper. They're a better alternative. But those HOA fees, people forget about those all the time. Condos, they can get pretty ridiculous.
I mean, for example, I have a listing coming up right now. $90,000 to $100,000 condo. HOA fee is $270 a month. And then there's a $230 assessment every month.
Well, yeah,
so you're paying
That's
$500
crazy.
you're paying $500 just in monthly fees.
And that money goes nowhere.
But
right?
that's the equivalent to $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 mortgage, because every $10,000 is about $50 a month.
right. So you could
Yeah.
buy a little bit more of an expensive house and not pay the HOA and have that money go into your principal or your forced savings account, or you could throw it all at the HOA.
And the HOAs go up. So everybody, they continually go up. They don't
Yeah.
stay the same. There's nothing stagnant about them.
So the assessment, though, like on this one, that's the thing. I mean, you can get hit with assessments at any point with an HOA.
Yeah.
Oh, they
Whatever
want to
yeah.
they want to redo all the air conditioning units, or they want to redo all the roofs. Okay,
It's out of your control.
that's
Yeah.
an additional $230 a month for everybody for the next 4 years. I mean, this one's been going on for 2 years, and it ends in 2024, in June of 2024, and that's $230 a month up until, I think there's a remaining balance of like $5,800. Is
Yeah,
how
well-
much you're going to pay over the next couple of years.
And I just want to let everybody know, we're not saying these things to discourage you from buying them. We are saying this so you have
You need to be aware.
realistic
Well, yeah.
expectations
Yeah.
and aware of what you're going to encounter, because it is not easier to get a condo. For the right person, yes,
Yeah.
but don't think that you're getting the condo. And by the way, condos are they're getting up in price.
Yeah. Well, the other
So
thing
they're
I
not
wanted
cheap.
I'm glad you said that. The other thing I wanted to say too is generally, in the past, condos typically do not appreciate it as fast as a rate as a typical.
No, they
single-family
don't.
residence.
Absolutely not. Nope.
So
They're usually not as easy to sell.
not
Nope.
as easy to sell. They don't appreciate.
Obviously, things are not as they were.
Oh
But
yeah. By the way,
right now,
by the way, the rates are going to be higher too, because it's a higher risk, because
More
you have
risky.
it. So if everybody doesn't know, a condo it's shared walls, but it's investor concentration, right? So the investor concentration are what the bylaws are, right? So the bylaws are going to dictate what you can do. Like for an example, FHA VA, right? There might be some rules to where a condo association won't let you rent the place out. So why can't I rent what I buy?
See it all the
And
time.
they won't approve. I mean, Govy loans like FHA, VA, they won't stand behind it. Rightfully so. Why would I want to invest? Why would an investor want to loan you money when you don't even have full control over what you're buying?
Yeah.
That's huge.
Well, that's a whole other thing too. I didn't even with the 3% down limited or non-limited review. That's only conventional. For FHA and VA, I'm glad you brought that up. Totally forgot. FHA and VA, it has to be approved.
Yeah, it's got to be approved. Yes, correct.
So if you're an FHA pre-approved buyer and you're looking at condos, you better check if it's approved before you even think about making an offer on it.
And that would once again talk about having a good mortgage planner that's going to communicate, because a good mortgage planner will be able to tell you almost immediately, is this going to be okay? Because I've seen it countless times to where I've had to save a deal to where they allowed an FHA buyer to go under contract because the lender's like, oh yeah, that's fine. And then you'll get in contract, it gets reviewed, and guess what? You can't get a case number because it's not approved.
Yeah. And then you have to try and rush a spot approval. And
Spot approval, which
That's never fun
is
for
spot,
anybody.
Spot like 30 to 90 days, depending on. We're talking about we're talking about the government, guys. Okay,
they
they're
don't move quick for anybody.
yeah, no.
Well, and like you guys always say about, there's always a good mortgage option or a different mortgage strategy for every buyer. There's certain scenarios where a condo is a better fit for a buyer than a single family. So that's another thing. Like, I'm never going to tell somebody, no, you need to be in a single family home or you need to be in a condo. But there are certain scenarios where somebody's like, hey, I'd like to have a condo, and this is kind of what I'm looking at spending. Well, there are certain situations where I would educate them, be like, hey, look, like, make sure with these HOA payments, I mean, yes, it's $120,000, but then you're going to have to factor in an additional $6,000 a year, and
That's
in
another
HOA
mortgage. You
payments.
might as well be buying $160,000, $175,000.
well, and that's what I'm
house,
saying. I'm like,
period.
look, if you want to spend that much, look at what you can get in comparison.
Right.
once
Yeah.
you factor that in.
Definitely.
Sure, at the same price point, they might be a little different, but once you factor in that additional $6,000,
Yep.
that brings you
Yep.
up
Yeah, you got it.
significantly.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, just like you said, this isn't meant to discourage anybody from wanting to buy a condo. Like you said, they're there for the right people. But what I've seen is a lot of first-time home buyers get attracted to condos because they're cheaper.
And it's low
Typically.
maintenance.
And it's low maintenance, but there's more to the story, right?
Yep.
Yeah, no, talk about maintenance. By the way, it's like land maintenance and snow removal. Okay, first of all, you can get a landscaping company that's going to be equivalent or probably cheaper than monthly HOA dues. So just want to throw that out
you're
there.
probably paying what? I mean, you can find people
gotta
that'll do
make
your
it-
lawn for $30 a month.
I mean,
or $30 a week. You're looking at 120.
Yeah.
You're looking at $120. I've never seen an HOA that's $120.
No, absolutely not. And if you got a cheaper HOA, that means that you probably don't have that great of amenities, and they're not.
Well, and there's
doing
probably
what-
no like limited reserve fund in case
Yep,
things go
exactly.
wrong. But that's the thing. Like for some people, like my grandma, my grandmother lives in a condo, and their HOA takes care of all of the maintenance. She's not in the best condition to be pushing a lawnmower. Like if she had a 1/4 acre lot, which is a relatively like average size lot for a house, she's in no condition to
Why
be doing
wouldn't you go over there?
No, I'm just saying I would. I would. But I'm saying like there are certain situations where that makes sense.
Yeah,
It's
100%.
the building has an elevator in it. There's single level there. They got
100%.
mail service straight to the door. They have trash service. They have the parking lot gets plowed. The lawn gets mowed. She doesn't have to worry about anything.
It makes sense.
Other
yeah.
than her utilities and her mortgage payment, there's nothing.
Yeah, 100%. No, it makes sense for some people. I absolutely agree. But no, I just want to make that known because, like I said, a lot of first-time home buyers get attracted to it. There's more to the story. Okay, well, right before we finish up, I want to make a quick statement or have a quick conversation about this market we're in right now. It's a weird one, super competitive. We're in a rising rate environment. Being a first-time
Super
home
fun
buyer-
for everybody too.
Yeah, being a first-time home buyer right now is hard, right? Because it's
Super
something
hard.
you've never done before. So on top of that, in a super competitive market, it's difficult. One thing that I will say, and this is something I'd say to everybody, you have to understand we're in a very competitive market. You have to understand that you're probably not. It's almost a 0.00% chance you're going to get the first house you offer on. Don't get emotionally attached. And if you're okay with that going in, you're okay with knowing you're going to make 5, 6, 7, 10 offers even, and that's what it's going to take to get a house. If you're okay with that, get into the
Well,
market.
that's like I don't know. Was that one of you that I was talking with on the phone the other day? That I think somebody told me the other day. I don't know if it was one of you two. I think the national average of offers made is like 5 or 6 right now.
Yeah, 6 offers until you get a house under contract. Yeah.
Yeah, unless you're in Ohio and you're talking 15.
No, he's saying a
Mason.
typical buyer makes
Oh.
about 5 to 6 offers.
Yeah,
before
I'm
they
saying
can
how
get a
many
house.
offers it takes for a buyer to write before they get one accepted.
Oh, I
think the
dude,
average
it might
is-
even be more than that right
That's the
now.
average.
Yeah, I think the average is 5 or
That's
6.
gonna bump up.
But
though.
that's like
gonna
right
bump
now.
up
I
coming
mean,
into
for
spring,
example,
yeah.
I have buyers anywhere that are closed or still currently looking that are anywhere from 3 to 11 offers that they've written over the course of the time that they've been looking.
Yeah.
Yeah, you also you need a good. But here's the other thing too. Like some of that, like I told you, the client that I had this weekend, where there was 2 offers put and I didn't even know it. Like, make sure your mortgage planner and your agent are like they're communicating, right?
Yeah, but to an extent, that can only go so far. Because I mean, we do our best to educate these buyers, right?
Yeah.
But to an extent, if they say, "Look, I'm not going over this," and they only go over,
that makes sense.
or they're trying to go under on everything. I mean, you can only tell them so much. But at the end of the day, it is their decision.
Yeah.
And if they're not deciding to do what is recommended, I mean, we can tell them what you need to do. I mean, everybody knows right now you need to go over asking, unless there's something wrong with the house. You can tell them that. But if they're not listening to you, and they repeatedly do that and don't pick up on, okay, well, maybe I need to start going higher than I have been.
Yeah.
There's really nothing you can do in that situation until they get lucky.
sense.
But
Definitely. Yeah, I would say if you're going to get in this market, you're a first-time home buyer, you can still do it.
just be prepared.
But yeah, just be prepared, know what you're getting into, and that's what I would say is most important right now as a first-time home buyer.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Cool. Well, good episode. I think there was a lot of valuable information
Absolutely.
on all aspects of the process as a first-time home buyer, so I think it'll be a really good one. We'll be back next week.
Yeah.
All right.
See you guys next
for
week.
Sure.
Awesome.
Later.